My name is Nia Morgan. I am 34 years old. On the day my husband, his mistress, and his own mother sat in a courtroom in Atlanta and laughed at me, they had no idea I was about to flip their perfect little story with one simple letter. We were in the Fulton County Courthouse downtown. The ceilings were high, the lights were bright, and the air felt heavy. I sat at one table with my lawyer. My husband, DeAndre Morgan, sat at the other, relaxed like a man who had already won. DeAndre wore a dark blue suit and a gold watch. His smile was smooth and proud, the same smile he used in real estate ads and magazine pictures. To strangers, he looked like a dream husband. To me, he looked like a man who believed money could buy the judge, the room, and even me. Next to him sat his lawyer, attorney Lance Fairfax. Lance had perfect hair, a neat tie, and a calm, trained voice. In front of him were tidy stacks of files and charts, all prepared to say the same thing: DeAndre the generous hero, Nia the foolish, wasteful wife. Behind DeAndre sat two women who helped him believe that story. His mother, Loretta Morgan, wore a navy dress and pearls and held her chin high, like the whole room was beneath her. Beside her sat Raven Cole, his mistress, in a bright red blazer and heels, polished from head to toe like this was her show. I heard Loretta lean toward Raven before the judge came in. "You look perfect, dear," Loretta said. "After today, we can finally put all this behind us." Raven gave a small laugh. "He deserves peace," she answered. Has carried her long enough. They did not lower their voices. To them, I was already out of the picture. I sat with my lawyer, attorney Jamal Green. His suit was simple, his briefcase worn at the corners. His hands shook a little when he checked his notes, but his eyes were steady. He was not the loudest or richest man in the room, but he was the one willing to stand next to me when almost everyone else told me to just sign and walk away. My heart beat fast, but I kept my back straight and my face calm. For years I had cried in secret and swallowed my anger. Today I folded my hands, kept my voice quiet, and let them think I was still that same weak, scared wife. Let them relax. Let them laugh. Let them feel safe. DeAndre turned his head and looked right at me. His eyes were cold. His smile was slow. "You'll never touch my money again, Nia," he said softly, but his voice carried across the room. "Not 1 cent. Raven leaned forward and rested her hand on his shoulder, like she already owned everything about him. "That's right, honey," she whispered, giving me a sweet, fake little smile. My cheeks burned, but I did not look away. For 8 years I had let this man and his mother define me. They called me ungrateful, silly, needy, a burden. I was done with that story. They just did not know it yet. Loretta shook her head and sighed. "She doesn't deserve a dime of Morgan money," she said. Before I could answer, a court officer called out, "All rise!" Everyone stood. We turned toward the front as Judge Denise Walker walked in and took her seat behind the high wooden bench. She wore a plain black robe and glasses. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were sharp, like she had seen every kind of trick and was tired of all of them. "You may be seated," she said. We sat. The room went quiet again. Lance stood and walked to the center. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a simple case. My client, Mr. DeAndre Morgan, is a successful real estate developer who has supported his wife for 8 years. Mrs. Morgan has not worked in many years. She has no income, no savings, and no real job skills. She has lived from his hard work. Mr. Morgan only asks to protect the business he built while still giving her a modest support so she can move on. If you only heard his voice, you would think DeAndre was a kind, patient man, and I was a spoiled, lazy woman. Charts and pages were set in front of the judge, full of lines and numbers that made his story look clean and honest on paper. I sat still, hands folded, eyes soft. On the outside, I looked small. On the inside, I was counting each lie like a stone I could later throw. Jamal stood next. His voice was not as smooth as Lance's, but it was steady. He told the judge how I had left my job when I married DeAndre, how I ran our home, cooked, cleaned, hosted dinners, and supported his long hours and travel. He said the work a wife does not always show up in a bank account. It was all true, but in a room full of big numbers and bigger heads, truth without money looks very small. I could feel the weight of the charts pressing down on our side of the table. By the time we stopped for lunch, it looked like DeAndre was winning. His lawyers were relaxed and smiling. Loretta's eyes shone with pride. Raven scrolled on her phone, already calm again, like she was planning a future where my name only showed up on old papers. They thought they were watching the end of my story. Really, they were sitting at the beginning of theirs. We came back after lunch. The air felt heavier, like the room itself knew something was about to change. My hands were cold, but there was a straight, steady line inside me that did not shake. Fear was still there, but it was standing beside something stronger now. Judge Walker took her seat and looked over the room. "Before I give my ruling," she said, "I am told there is one more piece of information I need to review." Lance frowned. "Your Honor, we have not been told of any new evidence," he said. "That is because it came directly to my chambers this morning," Judge Walker replied. Then she turned her eyes toward our table. "Mr. Green?" Jamal stood and picked up a plain white envelope. For a second he met my eyes. We both knew what was inside. It was not just paper. It was the moment everything would turn. He walked it up to the bench and handed it to the judge. The room went very quiet. I could hear someone cough. I could hear my own heartbeat. Judge Walker opened the envelope and took out several pages. She began to read. At first her face stayed calm. Then one eyebrow lifted just a little, her lips pressed together like she was trying not to smile too soon. She kept reading. DeAndre shifted in his seat. "What is that?" he hissed at Lance. "I don't know," Lance whispered back, but the smooth, easy look was gone from his face. Loretta's fingers tightened on her purse. Raven lowered her phone and stared at the judge with wide eyes. Judge Walker finished the last page and set the papers down. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then she started to laugh. It was not a small, polite laugh. It was a real, deep laugh that filled the courtroom and bounced off the walls. She even took off her glasses and wiped a tiny tear from the corner of her eye. "This," she said at last, still smiling, "is very, very good." DeAndre went pale. "What is this?" he demanded. Judge Walker looked straight at him. "Mr. Morgan," she said, her voice clear and firm, "I believe the word you like to use is checkmate." Gasps and whispers burst out across the room. I sat very still, feeling the power slide away from DeAndre and roll toward me. For the first time in 8 years, I was not the piece being moved. I was the one who had made the final move. If you want to know how a broke, humiliated housewife in Buckhead ended up working with the FBI to bring down her own billionaire husband, his cold mother, and his shining new mistress, stay with me. Before we go back to the beginning, tap like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. Your support helps me keep sharing these stories of family betrayal, quiet revenge, and women taking their power back. Now let me take you back to 2017, the year I truly thought I had married a dream. In 2017, before the courthouse and the handcuffs, my life felt like a dream. Back then, I was just Naya from the south side of Atlanta. I worked at a small marketing agency near downtown. The pay was modest, but the work was mine. I rented a tiny one-bedroom above a laundromat, and every bill had my name on it. I met DeAndre on a humid Thursday in June. He walked into our office in a light gray suit and smooth smile. He stood over the sample boards and pointed to the one I had designed. "Who did this?" he asked. My boss jerked his thumb toward me. "Nia." DeAndre turned, really looked at me, and smiled. "You see the story behind the picture?" he said. "That's rare." From there, the path was quick. Extra emails. Then, one night, he asked, "Want to grab coffee?" Coffee became dinner. Dinner became late-night drives through Buckhead, music low. The first time he picked me up from my little apartment, I almost told him to wait around the corner. His black Mercedes looked out of place in front of my cracked sidewalk. "Sorry it's so small," I said. He shook his head. "Never be sorry about where you started," he told me. "It just makes the upgrade sweeter." A few months later, he took me to his place. The elevator opened straight into the living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Buckhead and the skyline. I walked to the glass. People really live like this? I whispered. You do now, he said, wrapping his arms around my waist. Get used to it, Mrs. Almost Morgan. We married the next spring in a hotel ballroom filled with flowers and gold chairs. My dress was heavy with lace. My mother cried through the vows. DeAndre slid a ring on my finger and whispered, "You will never worry about money again. That's my job." At first, he kept that promise. We did Sunday brunches in Buckhead. He brought home dresses and said, "Wear this tonight. We have a thing." I still went to my marketing job. I liked having my own projects. The paycheck wasn't huge, but when it hit my account, I felt grounded. About 6 months into the marriage, we were at a small French restaurant in Midtown. We had just shared a dessert when DeAndre took my hand. "Baby," he said, "we need to talk about your job." I laughed. "What about it?" He rubbed his thumb over my fingers. "You get up before dawn, you drag home tired, and for what? That little salary? I make more in a day than you make in a month." The words "little salary" stung. "I know it's not a lot," I said, "but I like my work." He leaned closer. "Nia, you are my wife now. You don't have to hustle like that. Let me carry the money pressure. Your job is to build our home, stand by me at events." I thought about my crowded office and bus rides, then looked at his suit and the candlelight. One life looked shiny. The other looked small. "What if we need my income one day?" I asked softly. He chuckled. "We won't. I'm building an empire. Trust me. Quit. Well, merge everything into one account. You'll have a card for what you need. Big stuff, we decide together." I wanted to be a good partner. A week later, I handed in my notice. My coworkers hugged me and wished me luck. When I walked out with my box, I felt strangely hollow. After I quit, DeAndre gathered my debit cards and closed my small accounts. "No need for all these," he said. "One household, one pot. I'll manage it." He gave me one credit card with my name on it. "This is for groceries, cleaning stuff, small personal things," he explained. $500 a week. More than enough. If you want something big, talk to me." At first it did feel like plenty. I shopped, cooked, and filled our fridge. But the rules showed up fast. One week I bought groceries and a small bouquet to brighten the table. When the bill came, he sat at the island and read the receipt. "Why organic berries?" he asked. "You think regular ones are poison?" I just thought, "And flowers?" He circled the line. "These die in days." That's money in the trash. Another week I bought new sheets and curtains for the guest room. He found that receipt too. $300 on curtains? His voice went cold. "You know how many hours I work for that? You said you wanted the home to look nice." I said quietly. "Nice, not wasteful," he snapped. "Next time, ask me first." The next day, I returned everything. The guest room looked bare again, but DeAndre kissed my forehead that night and said, "Proud of you, you're learning discipline." I started repeating his words whenever my chest tightened. Little lies I used like bandages. Slowly, my world shrank. Friends invited me to lunch, and I would stare at the text and think, do I really want to explain that I don't control my own money anymore? I told them I was busy with the house or saving. After enough no's, the invites stopped. The only regular person in my life besides DeAndre was his mother, Loretta. Every Sunday she came for dinner. She lived in a large brick house in a gated suburb, but she treated our Buckhead condo like one of her projects. The first Sunday after I quit, she walked through the living room, fingertips brushing the furniture. "The view is wasted if the room isn't balanced," she said. "These flowers are too small. The pillows are wrong." "I'm still figuring it out," I said. At dinner, she took one bite of my roast chicken and set her fork down. "Dry," she said. "A Morgan table should have higher standards." DeAndre didn't step in. He just nodded. "Nia's still adjusting," he said. Week after week, it was like that. My napkins were too casual, my dress was too plain, my hair was unfinished. Almost 3 years into the marriage, she arrived one Sunday with a special light in her eyes. We sat down, my stomach tight. "I met the impressive young woman at the country club in Johns Creek yesterday," Loretta said, cutting her meat into pieces. "Her name is Raven Cole, an architect from a good family. DeAndre's fork paused. Raven Cole, he repeated. I've seen her work. You should hire her to redesign the guest suite, Loretta said, smiling. It needs a professional touch, someone with true vision. Her eyes drifted toward the hallway that led to the guest room I had painted and arranged myself. DeAndre turned to me. His face was smooth. What do you think, Nia? He asked. Should we let a professional take a look? The question sat between us like a test. If I said no, I was petty. If I said yes, I was agreeing I wasn't good enough. My throat ached, but my voice came out steady. Whatever you think is best, I said. You and your mother know more about design than I do. Loretta's smile widened a fraction. DeAndre nodded, already moving on. That night, staring at the dark ceiling while DeAndre snored beside me, I finally named the truth I had been afraid to say out loud. I wasn't a partner in this house, I was a placeholder. And somewhere out there, in a bright country club in Johns Creek, my mother-in-law had already chosen my replacement. I didn't know then that the name Raven Cole would one day echo through a courtroom. I only knew my fairy tale already had a crack running down the middle. After that Sunday dinner when Loretta mentioned Raven like she was already family, something inside me stayed awake. Outside, nothing changed. Same Buckhead condo, same photos on social media, same people calling us goals. Inside, a small voice kept whispering, "Pay attention." DeAndre started saying her name more. Raven killed that presentation. Raven stayed late to help. Raven's got real vision. He talked about her drive the way he used to talk about mine. I smiled like it didn't bother me, then lay awake at night replaying his words. The first clear warning came on a Tuesday. He came home late, smelling like heavy cologne I didn't buy. "Client dinner downtown," he said. When I asked about the scent, he shrugged. Guy at the store was spraying samples. A week later, I found coral lipstick on his shirt collar. Not my color. At dinner, I mentioned the stain. He blamed the dry cleaner mixing up orders and went back to his phone. The excuse was thin, but I knew if I pushed I'd become the jealous wife. So I said nothing. I just watched. Then I found the receipt. It slipped out of his pants pocket when I was hanging them up. Bella Luna, the Italian restaurant where Wed celebrated our 3rd anniversary. The date was last Tuesday, the same night he claimed he was buried in paperwork. 2 entrees, wine, dessert, over $800. My hands shook. I thought of all the lectures about grocery bills, all the times he said, "We need to be disciplined." Now I held proof he was living a different set of rules when I wasn't looking. That night I didn't confront him. I watched him tell the same paperwork story with a straight face. Lying beside him later, staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. Next time, you'll see it with your own eyes. The following Tuesday, he mentioned another late meeting with out-of-town developers. When he left, I didn't sit on the couch and wait like usual. I put on jeans, a plain hoodie, a cap, and followed his black Mercedes downtown, staying several cars back. He parked near Bella Luna. I parked a block away and walked to a corner where I could see the door. A few minutes later, he walked up, checked his watch, and looked toward the street. Raven stepped out of a car in a red coat. They went in together. From the window, I watched them eat, laugh, lean close. I snapped a few shaky pictures on my phone. At one point, he lifted her hand and kissed it, the same move he used on me when we first dated. My stomach twisted. When they left, he kissed her under the lights like no one else existed. The click inside me was quiet but final. Something in me stopped begging to be reassured. Over the next weeks, the pattern repeated. Late meetings that lined up with dinners and drinks. Some nights I followed. Some nights I simply watched the clock and imagined the red coat. The final piece fell into place on a Saturday. He said he had a development retreat at a country club north of the city. Golf. Investors. 1 night away. As soon as he left, I followed again, hanging far behind on the freeway. At the club, I parked on a side road and watched through a gap in the trees. DeAndre and Raven were on the tennis court in white, laughing like a commercial. On the patio sat Loretta, drink in hand, watching them with pride. When Raven scored a point, Loretta clapped. Later, they all sat together, leaning in, talking like they'd done this 100 times. They didn't look like a man sneaking around with a coworker. They looked like a new little family. Driving home, I didn't cry. The hurt had boiled down into something sharper. If he could lie this easily about love, he could lie about anything. So I decided something, right there in traffic with my hands tight on the wheel. I would stop arguing with his words. I would start paying attention to his money. That night, back in our condo, the city lights looked different to me. Before, they had felt like proof that we had made it. Now they looked like a curtain, hiding whatever DeAndre chose not to tell me. He came home from his retreat tired and smiling, kissed my cheek, and started talking about golf swings and investor jokes. I listened, nodding at the right moments, and felt the distance between his words and what I had seen grow wider with every sentence. While he showered, I sat at the kitchen island with my phone, scrolling through the pictures I had taken. The red coat at Bella Luna, the kiss under the restaurant lights, the tennis court at the country club, Loretta clapping on the patio. Each image felt like a puzzle piece, and together they made a picture that was suddenly impossible to ignore. Whatever story he thought he was selling, I now had my own. I thought back over the past couple of years, replaying small moments I had brushed aside. How he had started locking the drawer in his office where he kept contracts. How he brushed me off when I asked simple questions about properties we supposedly owned together. How my name appeared less and less on paperwork just to keep things clean, as he put it. At the time, I'd believed him. Tonight, those memories lined up beside the lipstick, the cologne, and the receipts. Lying in bed next to him, I realized something that chilled me more than the affair itself. The cheating hurt my heart, but the money could ruin my life. Affairs end. Bank accounts last. Houses, companies, and hidden accounts could outlive any apology he might one day try to offer. If this was the way he lied about dinners and weekends, what did his lies about assets look like? I remembered the day we signed the papers for the Buckhead condo. Back then, he sat me down with a folder and said, "Trust me, I'll handle the boring stuff. You don't need to stress about it." I had felt cared for in that moment, protected even. Now that same memory tasted bitter. Trust me, coming from his mouth no longer sounded like comfort. It sounded like a warning label I had ignored. So as he slept, I began quietly counting, not sheep, but lies. The tight budget lectures. The times he said a property deal had fallen through and refused to explain. The trips he claimed were too last minute for spouses. Every one of those moments formed a trail leading away from my name on anything important. I lay there in the dark and realized that watching his heart was not enough anymore. I needed to watch his pen, his passwords, his signatures. In the morning, I made coffee like usual, but my questions changed. Instead of asking how the retreat went, I asked which investors had come. Instead of letting him wave me off, I gently pushed for small details, company names, city names, hotel names. I tucked each answer away, smiling like the same old wife he thought he knew. From the outside, I stayed soft, polite, calm. Inside, a new part of me had woken up. Not the young woman who just wanted romance, and not the scared woman begging to be chosen. This version of me was quieter and sharper. She watched where the money flowed. She listened when he dropped casual numbers or mentioned a new LLC. She replayed his words at night, not to soothe herself, but to see where the story didn't line up. I didn't have a plan yet. I didn't know about agents or deals or how far his schemes went. But I finally understood this. The real betrayal wasn't just happening at dinner tables and country clubs. It was happening on documents, in bank accounts, and in rooms where my name had been gently erased. And if I wanted to survive what was coming, I needed more than proof of kisses. I needed proof on paper. So I started small. I paid attention when the mail came. I noticed which envelopes he grabbed first. I watched what went into the shredder and what went into the safe. The day I decided to open DeAndre's office door, the condo felt like it was holding its breath. For months, little things had bothered me. Lipstick that was not mine, client dinners that matched Raven's photos, his mother smiling at her like family, and always that door, locked every time he left the house, as if his own wife was a stranger who could not be trusted around his papers. He called it his focus room. He said he could not think if people moved his files. I used to nod and tell myself, rich men were like that. Now those excuses felt thin and cheap. That Tuesday morning he left early for a site visit. I heard his deep voice in the hallway, talking about numbers, before the front door closed. Then the condo went quiet. I could hear the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of traffic. My heart beat louder than both. I walked past the office once, twice. The third time, I stopped. I put my hand on the knob and just stood there. I remembered the night I saw him slide a small key under the base of his desk lamp in our bedroom. He thought I was busy folding laundry. I had seen it and chosen to pretend I hadn't. That was before Raven's red coat, before the country club, before I heard Loretta call me a placeholder with a smile. "You live here too," I told myself. "Whatever is behind this door is already your problem." I went to our bedroom, lifted the lamp, and took the key. It was small and cold in my hand. Back at the office, my fingers shook as I slipped it into the lock. The soft click sounded louder than it should. His office was neat and cold, dark shelves, big desk under the window, 2 tall file cabinets in the corner. No family pictures, no little messes. It did not look like a lived-in room. It looked like a bank. I started at the desk. Top drawer, pens, sticky notes, a spare watch. Second drawer, contracts, printed emails, folders with company names I didn't know. Third drawer, stuck halfway, like it was warning me not to go further. I pulled until it jerked open. On top sat a plain folder labeled Personal Accounts. My chest tightened. I opened it. Bank statements. Thick stacks of them. 3 different banks. All of them in his name only. None of them matched the joint account he used to lecture me about. The numbers made my eyes sting. Deposits for $200,000. Transfers of $75,000. Cash withdrawals of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at a time. The dates stretched back years. We had never talked about this money. While he scolded me for spending too much at the grocery store, he had rivers of cash moving quietly behind my back. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. My hands shook, so I forced myself to slow down. Page by page, I made copies for myself. In the file cabinet, I found more. The top drawer held thick folders. One name showed up again and again on the labels: Morgan Holdings, LLC. I pulled that folder and opened it. Deeds, rental agreements, loan papers. According to the documents, Morgan Holdings owned properties all over the city: a small apartment building, a house in Decatur, a warehouse near the Beltline. Some addresses I remembered from stories Head told me, client properties, he had called them. On every page, the owner was listed as Morgan Holdings, LLC. My name never appeared once. I thought about every time I had asked, "Is that ours?" And he had smiled and said, "No, baby, just business stuff. You don't need to worry." Standing in his office, I finally understood what those words really meant. This is mine, and I am making sure it stays mine. At the back of the drawer, I found receipts, a Maldives trip package, a watch for $15,000, jewelry from stores where the front doors lock automatically. We had never taken that trip. I had never worn that jewelry. I did not need labels to know who those gifts were meant for. On the very bottom was a thin folder labeled Asset Protection. I opened it and felt the air leave my chest. Trusts, transfers, notes about offshore accounts, pages about moving properties into shells and out of reach. One sentence, written in his careful handwriting, jumped out at me: "Keep marital exposure low." To DeAndre, I was not a partner. I was a risk to be managed. My hands went numb. The affair hurt, but this was worse. This was a plan. He wasn't just sleeping with someone else. He was slowly erasing me from the life I had helped him build, so that one day he could walk away with everything and leave me standing there with nothing. For a long moment, I just stood in that cold room and listened to the quiet buzz of the air vent. Then something inside me hardened. Not wild anger, not screaming rage, just a clear, sharp line. He thinks I will never look, I thought. He thinks I will cry, sign whatever he puts in front of me, and disappear. Carefully, I put everything back in place. The personal accounts folder, the Morgan Holdings file, the asset protection pages at the bottom. I closed the drawers, straightened the desk, turned off the light, and locked the door. Then I put the key back under the bedroom lamp, exactly where it had been. The rest of the day, I played my role. I loaded the dishwasher. I wiped the counters. I answered texts with little hearts. On the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, I knew my marriage was no longer just broken, it was dangerous. That night, DeAndre came home, kissed my cheek, and dropped his keys in the bowl. "Slow day," he said, loosening his tie. "Market's rough. Gotta tighten up." I stirred the pot on the stove and nodded. I did not tell him that I had seen proof the market was not rough for him. I did not tell him that his secret kingdom now lived in my phone as tiny pictures. Later, when he fell asleep, I lay on my back and scrolled through those photos. Numbers, addresses, signatures. That ugly phrase, "Keep marital exposure low." I knew I was looking at more than simple lies. I just didn't have the right name for it. That was when I thought of Erica Hayes. Before I married DeAndre, I worked at a marketing agency. Erica handled finance. She could explain a budget to a room full of tired people and somehow make everyone feel smart. She was the kind of friend who told you the truth without trying to hurt you. As DeAndre pulled me deeper into his world, those friendships faded. I stopped going to taco nights. I stopped picking up calls from people who didn't fit his image of our life. Lying in the dark beside him now, I wondered why I had let my whole support system slip away for a man who was hiding everything from me. The next morning, I finally reached for my phone. I called Erica, told her I had found strange money papers, and asked if she could meet. That afternoon, we sat in a quiet cafe while she scrolled through my photos in silence. When she looked up, her face was tight. She said this looked like money laundering, like someone using real estate to wash dirty cash. Then she wrote down a name, Detective Kelvin Rhodes, White-Collar Crimes. My hands shook as I took the paper, but for the first time, I felt the edge of a plan for myself. The day I walked into that police station, I felt like I was walking into a different universe. At home, everything was polished and staged, marble floors, tall windows, fresh flowers that someone else arranged. At the station, the floor was dull, the chairs were metal, and the walls were just walls. No art, no candles, no fake, perfect life. A young officer led me down a hallway to a small gray room with a table and 2 chairs. "You can wait here, ma'am. Detective Rhodes will be right in," he said. I sat down and wrapped my hands around my purse so tight my knuckles turned white. The photos in my phone felt heavy. The secret number Erica had given me buzzed in my head. Detective Kelvin Rhodes, White-Collar Crimes. The door opened. A man in a dress shirt and tie walked in with a folder and a paper cup of coffee. Brown skin, a little gray at the temples, calm eyes that looked like they had seen a lot and were not easily surprised. "Mrs. Morgan?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded small in that room. "I'm Detective Kelvin Rhodes," he said, taking the seat across from me. "Erica Hayes called me yesterday. Said you might come in. I'm glad you did." He nodded toward my phone. "You brought something to show me?" I unlocked it, scrolled to the first photo from DeAndre's office, and pushed the phone across the table. "I went into my husband's home office," I said. "He keeps it locked. I found bank statements, property papers, something called Morgan Holdings LLC, and a file marked Asset Protection. I took pictures of everything I could before he came home. I don't understand all of it, but I know he hid it from me." Kelvin didn't interrupt. He just scrolled. One photo, then another. Statements, transfers, deeds, more statements. His face stayed mostly neutral, but I saw his eyes harden a little. After a while, he set the phone down and folded his hands. "Mrs. Morgan," he said quietly, "you're not overreacting. This isn't just a selfish husband stashing money away from his wife. This is serious crime." "What kind?" I whispered. "Let me put it in simple language," he said. "Imagine someone makes a lot of cash from very bad things, drug dealing, guns, human trafficking, whatever. That cash is dirty. If they just walk into a bank and drop it off, alarms go off. So they go to someone who can wash it for them." He tapped one of the screenshots. Your husband is that someone. He takes dirty cash, uses it to buy houses or buildings, then he sells those properties and puts the sale money in the bank. On paper, the money looks like normal real estate profit. The dirty cash has been washed clean. That's money laundering. The word felt like a door slamming shut. Are you sure? I asked. Could it be something else? He shook his head. The pattern is textbook. Large cash deposits from shell companies that don't seem real. Properties bought and sold in tight cycles. Money moving through different accounts before it lands overseas. We see this all the time. He turned my phone so I could see the screen and pointed to one name. And this is worse, he added. This company here? We believe it's tied to a man named Darius Mercer. We think he runs a major trafficking network. We've been trying to nail down his money trails for years. I had never heard the name before, but the way he said it made my skin crawl. What happens if you charge DeAndre? I asked. My voice shook. How much time are we talking about? For this scale? Kelvin said. 15 to 20 years in federal prison, maybe more, depending on what else we can prove, and that's just on the money side. People above him won't be happy about any of this either. My stomach dropped. And, what about me? I asked. I didn't know. I was at home cooking dinner and folding laundry. Do I go to prison too? Kelvin's face softened a little. From what I've seen so far, you're not part of the crime, he said. You're the spouse who just uncovered it. That helps you. But there's another problem. He leaned forward. If we prove these properties and accounts are tied to dirty money, the government can take them. House, cars, business assets, anything bought with illegal funds can be seized. You might not be charged, but you could still end up with nothing. It was like hearing DeAndre's plan out loud, just with different hands doing the taking. I thought about the asset protection file, the trusts, the offshore notes, the way he told me, "You don't need to worry about money, Nia," while he made sure I had no access to any of it. Detective, I said slowly. He is already pushing me towards zero. I saw the papers. Has moving money where divorce court can't touch it. He has a new woman, a happy mother smiling at that woman. I am the only piece he doesn't want, and has almost done removing me. Kelvin nodded, like Head heard this before in other voices. What do you want? He asked. The question surprised me more than anything he had said so far. People had been telling me what I should want for so long that I had forgotten how to answer that. I took a breath. I want to be safe, I said. I don't want to go to prison for something I didn't do. I want a chance to keep whatever he earned legally before he tied himself to these people. And, my throat tightened, but I forced the words out. I want the truth to catch him. I want him to feel what it's like to have his life pulled out from under him without warning. Kelvin studied me for a moment. Then there might be a way to get most of that, he said. But it's dangerous. He sat back and laced his fingers. You could work with us, he said. From inside. Not as a cop, but as a confidential source. I stared at him. You mean spy on my husband? I said. Yes, he replied simply. You live next to him. You hear the calls he makes from the couch. You see who comes to the house. You walk past his office every day. With training and the right tools, you could help us build a complete case against him and the people above him. Fear ran through me. But there was something else, too. For years I had felt helpless, trapped behind glass. Now someone was telling me I could actually move the glass. And what happens to me if I do this? I asked. Please don't just say, well, do our best. I've heard that line before. A tiny smile flickered at the corner of his mouth. Fair, he said. I can't offer you a full deal myself. That has to come from the prosecutor's office. But she's in this building. Let me bring her in. He stood. Wait here, he said. When the door closed, the room felt smaller. I looked down at my hands. My wedding ring caught the light. I remembered the night he put it on my finger and said, "You'll never have to worry about anything again." Now here I was in a gray room, worrying about everything at once. The door opened again. Kelvin walked in with a woman in a navy suit and low heels. She carried a slim folder and had the kind of calm you only get from walking into hard rooms every day. Mrs. Morgan, this is Assistant District Attorney Kiara Thompson, Kelvin said. She handles a lot of our financial crime cases. Kiara sat across from me, opened her folder, and looked me in the eye. "I've reviewed the material you brought," she said. "You did the right thing coming here. It doesn't feel good, I know, but it is right." "It feels like I'm blowing up my whole life," I said quietly. "It is both," she answered. "Sometimes the right thing is also the hard thing. Let me tell you what we can offer, and then you can decide." She laid a few pages on the table and slid them toward me. "If you agree to cooperate," she said, "we can put 3 main promises in writing. 1. We will not charge you for your husband's money laundering, as long as you tell us the truth and don't hide anything. That's immunity. 2. If we believe you're in danger, we can arrange protection from extra patrols around your home all the way up to relocation if it comes to that. 3. We will argue to the court that you should keep any assets that can be proven to come from legal income, not from the dirty money. So I could still lose a lot, I said. "Yes," she said. "Anything tied straight to crime will probably be taken. But without this agreement, you could lose everything. With it, there is at least a path to keep a real piece of your life." "What exactly do you need from me?" I asked. Kiara folded her hands. "We need you to keep living your life beside him," she said. "Act normal. Cook dinner. Smile. Go to events. Don't tip him off. While you do that, we need you to quietly collect evidence, record his calls when he talks business at home, photograph documents, take notes on who he meets and when. We'll train you how to do it so it holds up in court." "And he can't know," I said. "He can't know," she repeated. "If he suspects you, he could shut down quickly, or he could try to scare you. Men who move this kind of money do not like surprises. You have to understand that risk before you sign anything." Fear crawled up my spine. I remembered the time he slammed a glass so hard it broke when I questioned a charge on our statement, the cold look in his eyes, the slow, careful way he said, "Don't ever bring up my business like that again, Nia." Kelvin's voice was gentle. "You can say no," he said. "Walk out, go home, let us do what we can without your help. We're not here to force you." "What happens if I walk out?" I asked. "Then we use what you already gave us and keep investigating," Kiara said. "You might still lose assets when we move on him. You'll have less say in how that happens. And if he finds out you came in here and then backed away, you'll be alone with his anger while we're still catching up." I looked at the pages on the table. Words about immunity, safety, forfeiture, truth, my whole future, flattened into paragraphs. For years, every choice I made had already been decided for me. What I wore, who I saw, what I spent. Now I had one choice that was truly mine, and it was huge. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady when I finally spoke. "I'll do it," I said, "but I want every promise on paper. No more secret deals in my life. Not from anybody." Kiara's eyes softened. "That's exactly how it should be," she said. "Well, go through this line by line." We did. She read each section out loud in plain words. I asked questions. She didn't rush. When something sounded fuzzy, she crossed it out and rewrote it. By the time I picked up the pen to sign, my heart was pounding, but it wasn't from fear alone. It was from something new. Power. Kelvin left the room and came back with a small black case. Inside was something that looked like an ordinary shirt button. "This is a recorder," he said. "You clip it where a button or brooch would normally go. Tap twice to start, once to stop. It can store hours of audio. Well, swap it out when you come back with new material." He placed it in my hand. It was light, but felt heavier than any diamond DeAndre had ever given me. "When you walk out of here," he said, "everything we've talked about becomes secret. You don't tell your husband, his mother, his friends. If you're scared, you call me. If something feels wrong, you call me. You're not doing this alone. Understood?" "Understood," I said. That memory flashed like a warning, but I still signed. I walked out of that gray room with a recorder on my blouse and a bigger secret in my heart. From that day on, every smile at DeAndre became evidence. From the day I walked out of the station with that tiny recorder in my hand, my life split in two. On the outside, nothing changed. I still cooked dinner in our Buckhead kitchen. I still smiled beside DeAndre at charity events and posted pictures of city lights. On the inside, everything was different. One part of me was the wife he thought he owned. The other part was the woman quietly helping the police pull his world apart. The first time I used the recorder, my fingers shook so hard I almost dropped it. DeAndre came in from the balcony, phone pressed to his ear. "No, Darius," he said calmly. "We don't shove that much cash into one deal. We break it up. 3 houses, 3 closings, no flags." I sat at the kitchen island with my tablet open, pretending to scroll recipes. The tiny recorder was clipped to my blouse, disguised as a dark button. "It's simple," he went on. "You drop the cash, I flip the properties. Buyers send clean wires. By the time it hits your people, the bank thinks it's just regular money." My thumb tapped the button twice. A faint buzz told me it was recording. When he ended the call, he walked over and kissed the top of my head. "You good, baby? You look tired." "Just trying to figure out dinner," I said, like I hadn't just recorded my husband explaining a crime. That night, after he fell asleep with the TV still glowing, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned the recorder off with shaking hands. After that, it became a rhythm. Every few days, I would run errands on the other side of town. Really, I drove to the precinct, walked the same hallway, and sat in the same gray room across from Detective Kelvin Rhodes. I slid the recorder and a thumb drive across the table. He put on headphones, listened, and took notes. "This is solid," he said one afternoon. Hez relaxed. He brags. "That ego is our best witness." My phone filled with pictures, open ledgers on his desk, transfer forms, lists of strange company names. The recorder caught everything from simple orders: keep each deposit under 75, big numbers wake compliance up to dark little jokes about dirty cash getting cleaned in Buckhead. The worst part was pretending nothing had changed. Sitting across from him at dinner, listening to him talk about loyalty, while I knew he would throw me away in a second if it saved him. Some nights I lay awake beside him and watched the shadows move on the ceiling. I remembered the time he grabbed my arm so hard it bruised because I asked about a missing check. Whenever fear got too loud, Kiara's voice came back to me. "You are in danger, whether you help us or not," she had said. "The difference is, with us, you at least have a shield." So I kept going. Online, our life looked perfect. DeAndre posted pictures on rooftops with captions about legacy. Loretta commented. Raven posted soft photos that never showed his face. I knew that watch on his wrist. I had seen the wire that paid for it. Meanwhile, in that gray room, the files on the table grew thicker. One day, Kelvin spread out a set of printouts covered in boxes and arrows. "Here," he said, tapping a line, "and here. Source cash, shell company, Deandra's account, property, sale, offshore. We've got full chains now. This is enough for charges." Kiara flipped through another stack with my name printed on the front. "If we hand this off now," she said, "the feds can move soon. Arrest, asset seizure, warrants." "How soon is soon?" I asked. "Within days," she said. "The longer we wait, the more chances he has to move money again or sense something's wrong. Earlier is safer." I thought about the folders in his office labeled separation and marital property. I thought about the draft divorce petition I had already seen and slipped back exactly where I found it. I thought about Loretta in my living room, talking like I was already gone. "There's a court date," I said quietly. "Fulton County. Divorce hearing. He thinks he's going to walk in there, sit beside his lawyer, and watch me get erased." Kiara's eyes narrowed. "Hez filed already?" "Yes," I said. "The terms would leave me with almost nothing. In his story, the ex-wife begging for crumbs." Kelvin leaned back. "What are you asking for, Nia?" "1 more week," I said. "Let him keep building his little show. Let him put on his best suit, bring his mother and his mistress, sit there thinking he's about to watch me beg, and then, right in that room, you flip the script. You want him to feel the fall," Kiara said softly. "I want him to understand I'm not furniture," I said. "I want him to know the person he tried to erase is the person who brought the truth." Kelvin and Kiara exchanged a long look. From an evidence view, waiting until the hearing doesn't hurt us, Kelvin said. We already have what we need. Well, keep eyes on him. If he moves money or tries to run, we go early. If he keeps doing what he's doing... Kiara let out a breath. All right, she said. 1 week. We align with the court date. But if anything feels off, we choose safety over drama. No arguments? None, I said. If you have to move sooner, move sooner. Just, if you can, let him walk into that room still thinking I'm weak. Driving home that night, Atlanta looked smaller to me now. The glass towers and crowded highway weren't his kingdom anymore. When I stepped back into the penthouse, he was on the couch with a game on mute and his laptop open. There she is, he said. You were out forever. You good? I'm good, I said, hanging up my purse. Got everything I needed. Over the next few days, I played my role like I was on stage. I cooked his favorite meals. I let Loretta sit at my table and talk about how some women don't know when they're blessed. 3 days before the hearing, a thick envelope from his lawyer landed on the counter. DeAndre tossed it down like it was nothing. What's that? I asked. Paperwork, he said. Well, go over it later. When he stepped out to take a call, I slid the envelope into my apron, scanned the pages, and saw the same cruel terms I expected. Then I pictured Kelvin's charts, Kiara's steady eyes, and that tiny recorder in my hand. I slid the papers back and put the envelope exactly where he left it. So when he finally sat me down and said, with fake sadness, Nia, this marriage isn't working anymore, I let my shoulders drop and my voice go small. I asked the soft questions he expected. Inside, I wasn't breaking. Inside, I was counting down to a Tuesday morning in a Fulton County courtroom where his story and my story were finally going to collide. The morning of the final hearing, Atlanta felt colder than usual. I put on the same simple black dress, the same plain shoes, and looked at myself in the mirror of the safe apartment the task force had given me. My hands shook for a second, then went still. This is it, I told my reflection. Last day you let him talk for you. At the Fulton County Courthouse, news vans lined the curb. People stood on the steps with coffee cups, curious eyes following anyone who looked like drama. I walked up alone, coat pulled tight, heart beating fast but steady. Inside the courtroom, everything looked the same as the day before. DeAndre sat at the front table in a dark blue suit, laughing with his lead lawyer, attorney Lance Fairfax. 2 more lawyers sat beside them with neat stacks of folders. From the outside, he still looked like a man who had already won. He turned when I came in, eyes sliding over my dress, my hair, my empty hands. You didn't have to come, he said with a little smile. Judge is just going to sign off. Won't take long. I didn't answer. I just took my seat next to my lawyer, attorney Jamal Green. His briefcase was worn, his tie a little crooked. To anyone watching, it probably looked like rich husband, weak wife, one last formality. The back door opened. Loretta walked in first, pearls shining against her navy suit. Raven followed in a pale blue dress, hair smooth, heels clicking softly on the floor. They sat behind DeAndre like a royal audience. Raven reached forward and laid her hand on his shoulder, like she was already the next Mrs. Morgan. Loretta gave me a small, tight smile that said, "This is over." When Judge Denise Walker entered, we all stood. She took her seat with calm eyes and a straight back. "Be seated," she said. "We are here to issue a ruling in the matter of Morgan versus Morgan." I saw DeAndre relax, like he was settling into a movie he had already watched. Then Judge Walker picked up a plain white envelope from her desk. "Before I issue any ruling," she said, "I need to address a letter that was submitted to my chambers this morning by counsel for Mrs. Morgan." Lance rose. "Your Honor, we were not informed of any new evidence. This is highly irregular." "You are being informed now, Mr. Fairfax," the judge said, her voice cool. "Sit down." He sat. DeAndre frowned. Loretta shifted in her seat. Raven folded her arms, annoyed. Judge Walker opened the envelope, slid out several pages, and began to read. The room went very quiet. I could hear the tick of the clock on the back wall. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. At first, the judge's face stayed flat and professional. Then one eyebrow lifted, the corners of her mouth twitched. Halfway down the second page, she let out a short, sharp chuckle. By the last page, she laughed. Not a small laugh, a full, honest, surprised laugh that echoed off the walls. She took off her glasses and wiped her eyes. "Oh," she said softly, still smiling, "this is something." DeAndre stiffened. "What is this?" he whispered to Lance. Lance looked rattled. "I don't know," he whispered back. Judge Walker put her glasses back on and looked straight at DeAndre. "Mr. Morgan," she said, "according to this letter, your wife has been working with law enforcement for the past 2 months as a confidential source in a major money laundering investigation." The air in the room changed. You could feel it. "She has provided recordings, documents, account numbers, and detailed notes," the judge continued, "showing how you took large cash payments from criminal sources tied to a man named Darius Mercer and washed that money through property purchases and sales handled by your real estate company. She has also provided proof that you skimmed extra money for yourself and used it to support an affair with Miss Raven Cole." Raven's hand flew to her mouth. "DeAndre," she gasped, "tell her she's wrong." Loretta stood up so fast her chair scraped. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "My son is a businessman, not a criminal. This woman is bitter. She is lying to ruin him." Judge Walker turned her head slowly. "Mrs. Morgan, sit down," she said. "This is not talk radio. The court has bank records, property records, and expert analysis to support every line. We also have sworn statements from Detective Kelvin Rhodes and Assistant District Attorney Kiera Thompson." Loretta sank back into her seat, face suddenly pale. "Furthermore," the judge went on, looking at the file again, "the family home you live in, several vehicles, and certain investment accounts were purchased with laundered funds. Property tied to these crimes is subject to seizure." Raven's perfect makeup started to smear as tears slid down her face. "I didn't know," she kept whispering. "I didn't know. I thought it was just business money." "Miss Cole," Judge Walker said calmly, "you would be wise to seek your own attorney. Accepting expensive gifts paid for with criminal proceeds can make you part of the crime, even if you claim you did not know." DeAndre jumped to his feet. "This is insane," he shouted. "She doesn't understand my work. You can't take my life based on my angry wife and her stories." "Sit down, Mr. Morgan," the judge said sharply. "This is not based on stories. This is based on numbers, paper, and your own recorded words." He sat, breathing hard, hands clenched. Judge Walker turned toward me. "Mrs. Morgan," she said, "the court recognizes the risk you took and the help you have given to this investigation. Under your cooperation agreement, you will not be charged in connection with Mr. Morgan's crimes. You will keep all assets proven to come from legitimate income, which totals approximately 55% of the marital estate. You will also receive protection as a key witness in the criminal case." For a second, the room blurred. I blinked hard and focused on the judge's face. She was not smiling now. She was simply stating facts. DeAndre stared at me like I was a stranger. "You did this," he said quietly. "You." I stood up. My legs shook, but my voice did not. "You spent years making sure I had nothing," I said. "No job, no money of my own, no say in anything. You planned to throw me away and keep everything. You told me knowledge was power, DeAndre. You were right. You just forgot I could learn too." Something in the gallery shifted. I felt eyes on me in a different way now. Not pity, not curiosity. Judge Walker watched us, then let a small, sharp smile touch her lips. "Checkmate, Mr. Morgan," she said. The back doors opened. Detective Kelvin Rhodes walked in with 2 federal agents in dark suits. Their badges flashed at their belts as they moved down the aisle. "Mr. Morgan," Judge Walker said, "all civil matters are stayed. You are now the subject of an active criminal case. Agents, you may execute your warrant." One of the agents stepped to DeAndre's side. "DeAndre Morgan," he said, "you are under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy, and related offenses. You have the right to remain silent." He pulled DeAndre's arms behind his back and snapped the handcuffs shut. The sound of the metal was small, but it felt huge. DeAndre turned his head and looked at me one last time. The charm was gone. The smooth mask was gone. All that was left was anger and fear. "You don't know what you've done," he hissed. I met his eyes and did not look away. "Yes," I said quietly. "I do. I stopped letting you write my ending." The agents led him toward the side door. Raven folded over in her seat, hands pressed to her face, shoulders shaking. Loretta stared straight ahead, pearls bright against her suit, eyes fixed on nothing. I stood there in my plain black dress, the same woman who had walked into this courtroom the day before. But inside, everything was different. For the first time in 8 years, the story wasn't just happening to me. I was the one turning the page. Outside the courthouse, the November air felt softer on my face. I took a slow breath and let it all out. This was my new beginning, on my terms, in my own name, and I promised myself I would never shrink for anyone again, ever. For a long time after that day in court, my life felt strangely quiet. There was no more rushing to get ready for his events, no more listening for his key in the door, no more walking on eggshells, waiting for his mood to change. The noise of DeAndre's world faded, and I was left with myself, my thoughts, and a future that was suddenly wide open. The task force moved me to a safe apartment on the other side of Atlanta while they finished the case. I had a new phone, a new lock, and officers driving past at night. Detective Rhodes checked in sometimes. I lay awake and wondered if I had made my life better or worse, if Darius might come after me, if DeAndre sat in a holding cell blaming me for everything. But little by little, the fear started to make room for something else. One morning I woke up, made coffee, and realized I didn't have to check anyone's calendar. I didn't have to ask if my plans fit his schedule. I didn't have to send a text to ask permission to buy groceries. I could stand in my kitchen, in a cheap t-shirt, drink my coffee slow, and know that no one could call me wasteful or lazy for it. About 6 months later, the criminal trial began. I took the stand in a dark suit that was mine, paid for with my own card. My hands shook when I swore to tell the truth, but my voice did not when I spoke. I told the jury about the locked office, the secret folders, the money that moved like water from one place to another. I told them how he cut me off from work, from money, and from friends. When the verdict came back, the courtroom was full again. DeAndre wore the same proud face he always wore. It did not help him this time. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The judge read the charges: money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy. A long list for a long sentence. DeAndre got 22 years in federal prison, no early release. Raven did not go to prison, but she did not walk away clean. She lost her license. Clients backed away. Her name slid off the fancy websites that once called her the future of design. Last I heard, she worked in a home store, helping people pick out rugs they could actually afford. Loretta lost the life she had polished for so long. The big house was gone. The cars were gone. The club membership went away when the scandal hit the news. The woman who used to tilt her chin at me in my own kitchen now lives in a small condo far from the golf course. She sent one letter through a lawyer saying she never knew and never meant for this to happen. I did not answer. There are some doors you do not open again. As for me, the cooperation agreement did what Kiara said it would do. Instead of being dragged down with him, I got to step out of the wreckage. I kept 55% of what he had earned legally. Stocks, a smaller group of properties, cash that could be traced back to real profit and not to men like Darius. The government took the rest. That felt fair to me. I sold the Buckhead Penthouse. There were too many ghosts in the marble. I bought a smaller townhouse with big windows in a quieter part of the city. The kitchen is not as fancy, but it is mine. The deed has my name on it alone. When I stand on the little back porch and drink coffee, there is no one behind me telling me how to hold the cup. I went back to school, nights at first, sitting in the back of a classroom with people 10 years younger than me. I felt old and nervous. Then I remembered how many years I had spent building someone else's dream. That thought pushed me through every exam. I finished my degree in business and opened a small marketing studio that helps local shops and small builders. The first time a client signed a contract with my company name at the top, I cried in my car. Not because I was sad, but because I had proof that my life could move without DeAndre's hand on the wheel. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I woke up strong and sure. Some days I woke up angry all over again. There were days I hated myself for not seeing the signs sooner. There were days I wondered if anyone would ever love me without trying to own me. Slowly, with time and therapy and honest talks with Erica and other women, I learned something important. Forgiving myself was the hardest part, but it was also the key. I was not stupid back then. I was trusting. I wanted to believe the man I loved. I wanted to build a home. People like DeAndre use those good parts of you as tools. That is not your fault. But once you see the truth, what you do next is your choice. That is what this story is really about. Not just the money, not just the crime. Not even the wild moment in court when a judge laughed in a rich man's face and said, "Checkmate." It is about the quiet moment when a woman who has been made small for years looks at herself and says, "I am done shrinking." It is about picking up one little piece of paper, or one phone, or one key, and taking one step toward your own safety and power. Today, my life is smaller on the outside and bigger on the inside. I pay my own bills. I choose my own friends. I say no when something does not feel right. I say yes when something good comes, even if I feel scared. I am learning that real love does not ask me to disappear. Maybe you are listening to this and seeing yourself in some part of my story. Maybe your partner controls all the money. Maybe they check every receipt and call it helping. Maybe they tell you that you could not survive without them, and a part of you has started to believe it. Let my life be proof. Control is not love. Fear is not respect. Silence is not peace. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to look at bank statements. You are allowed to keep your own savings, your own job, your own mind. You are allowed to walk away from people who build a life on your back and then try to push you out of it. I cannot promise your story will look like mine. Not everyone will have a detective and a prosecutor and a judge in their corner. But I can promise this. The moment you stop believing the lies that make you small, something in the universe shifts. New doors open. New voices show up. Even if the change is slow, it is real. So, that is where I am now. DeAndre is in year 3 of a long sentence. Raven is rebuilding a life without designer lights on it. Loretta is living with the sound of her own thoughts instead of the applause of strangers. And me? I am sitting at my own kitchen table, telling you this story with my name on the front of it. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. You did not just listen to drama. You walked through a whole journey with me, from the golden cage to the open door. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments what city you are listening from, and if any part of my story touched your heart or woke something up inside you. Your words still matter here. And if you want to help me keep telling stories about women who refuse to stay small, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, tap that like button, and share this video with someone who might need a quiet push toward their own freedom. Your support is the reason I can sit here, speak my truth, and keep bringing you more stories of strength, courage, and well-earned revenge.